So just wrapping up here at Roca, maybe we want to just start there, kind of how did the class go today and kind of what are you guys working on?
Yeah, so right now we're like 3.5 weeks out from the Patrick Gaudio match, which is my return match. I feel like I do a return match every time I come back because I'm always just sick or hurt or something. But I'm excited to get back out there. We're just did a lot of wrestling today because we have my camp going on, but also the trials are coming up. So we have to kind of split between who's number one rules and ADCC rules for the guys going to Poland. So it's just a combination of groundwork, but a lot of standing position stuff to get the guys ready for ADCC, and obviously North American trials are around the corner as well. So I'm doing a lot of ADCC heavy stuff, which is fine for me because I'm gonna, do a lot of standing position and wrestling as well for this match. So it works out perfect for me.
And how about the technique that you taught?
Yeah, so just using, obviously we do a lot of wrestling and standing position heavy stuff, but also we don't want to keep our submissions crisp. So John will kind of change the theme mid-class from ADCC rules to like a pure submission game where this one was, we entered into a cross hashigurami from bottom position, and then the guy goes to defend by falling to a hip, and then we chain a submission attack with a positional attack, where the second the guy defends the submission, we just come up and immediately go into a body lock, double split the legs, and then pass from there.
And then you just mentioned earlier, about how you're always kind of coming back. And I know we talk a lot about your health, but when you're not on the mats or when you're not actively training for competition, is that hard for you?
Yeah, I mean the biggest X factor in my career is just me being healthy, and it all kind of stems from my stomach issues, which I've had for 5 years now. But I'm always on the mats. The one time with this most recent debacle, I wasn't on the mats for like almost 4 months because I had that strep throat where I was super contagious. I was contagious the whole time through for like a month and a half. They just couldn't get rid of it. And so I was on antibiotics, but it was like kind of just holding it at bay. And so for like 45 days almost, I was contagious with strep, and Nicholas was getting ready for Pans, I think, and everyone was in camp. So I didn't want to come in and like watch and get everybody sick. And then right off of that, I had the surgery on my tonsils and my throat, and that was kind of like a big open infection in the back of my throat for like 4 weeks. And I couldn't get my nose hit for 8 weeks, so it was like months and months that I wasn't able to be here. But now I'm back, and I feel good, and we're kind of building into this camp, and then we have this one, and then November, of course, and I'm kind of just trying to do a heavy end of the year, and then a little break in the beginning of next year, and then kind of heavy towards ADCC. So.
But yes, the King is back finally. Everybody's excited. But what's the reception that you've gotten, since it's been a couple weeks, right, since we've announced the match here, October 1st, you versus Patrick Gaudio? What's the kind of reception that you've gotten?
People obviously are going to talk shit on the internet, but I think most people are just happy to see me back because it's kind of been, Nicholas has been doing great things, and obviously he's been making waves in both the gi and no gi scene. So I think people are really excited about him. But other than that, I think people are just excited to have me back because the other competitors are just so boring. Like there's not really that many high-level matches where guys come out and they talk shit and they make it exciting. So besides Nicholas, I think that people are just really excited to have me back and competing, and just for the entertainment value. And then of course on the technical side, people just like to see me compete because it's like watching like a college professor teach. It's like a lesson when I compete, where people can really see the new things I've been working on and the things that are in my instructionals that I show that now I'm hitting on the best guys in the world.
And of course, we've spent a lot of time talking about this 2018 match that you guys have had, but when you look back on that match, what really sticks out about Patrick Gaudio's jiu-jitsu or about that match kind of specifically when you think about it?
So that match was interesting. So that was like the last match that I almost lost. Like he scored an advantage with like 30 seconds left, and I was like, oh my God, am I really going to lose by this advantage because he hit a toe hold from open guard and I rolled out of it. So then I picked up the pace and I luckily scored 2 advantages. But I didn't really know who Gaudio was at the time. It was 2018, and I didn't really research high-level guys until I was actually competing against them. And Gaudio was never in ADCC at that time. I think he lost trials in 2017 to Penna. I think he took silver in the trials.
Kainan, I think.
They call it Kainan, maybe. Yeah. So he didn't win the trials, and then he was never at ADCC. So I didn't know who he was, but I knew kind of him. He competed against one of the guys from Henzo's in the match before me, and he beat him. And so I was like, okay, that kid from Henzo's is pretty tough. So Gaudio must be pretty good. And I went out and it was basically the whole match of him just kind of knee sliding into my butterfly half guard and putting himself in the cross hashigurami. But I wanted to make a point during that tournament that I wasn't going to use any leg locks, because people coming out of ADCC were like, oh, if it's IBJJF rules and there's no heel hooks, there's no way he's going to win. So I made a public point to say that I'm going to do no-gi pans, no-gi worlds, not use leg locks, double gold, and then never do them again, and which is what I did. So I just used cross hashigurami to sweep him, and then we kind of went sweep for sweep. I made some technical mistakes and allowed him to get back up to top position. He came up on singles a few times. One time he went for a berimbolo. Came up on a single one time, and then he went for a berimbolo where he threatened my back, and I ended up going to bottom to avoid back exposure. And so I think that I should have been able to hold him down from there, but I didn't, and he managed to come back up, and we went kind of sweep for sweep. And so it was 4-4, and then he had a couple advantages for something, and he got an advantage, and he was up by an advantage, and I was like, oh my God, there's 30 seconds left, I gotta do something. So then I came up on, I was heisting, I shot a single, came to a body lock, and then he was trying to run out of bounds. I pulled him back inbounds, hit a Diashi Harai, got an advantage for a near takedown, threw 2 hooks in briefly, he peeled the hook, I got a second advantage for almost taking his back, and then the match ended, and I ended up winning that, so.
One of the more kind of like intense matches for you, probably, just because it went down to the wire so much like that, would you say?
Yeah, I also, the Gaudio match, probably second was the Lucas Barboza match in ADCC. The Gaudio match was the match that I was most nauseous for in my entire career, because in IBJJF you compete from like 8 in the morning until like 9 at night. And so usually, because I fast beforehand, because my stomach is a little bit calmer when I fast beforehand, if the event starts at 9 p.m., I'll stay up until like 6 a.m. the day before, and I'll sleep until like 6 p.m. on the night of the event. But for IBJJF, you have to do your first match at like 8 a.m., and then your last match is at like 9 p.m. So like right before I had to fight him, I was like lying on the floor because my stomach was cramping because I was so hungry. I was like, I had such bad hunger pains because I was so hungry because I didn't eat all day. And Sunny actually convinced me, she's like, just have like a handful of cashews, like it'll hold you over. So I ate a handful of cashews like 15 minutes before I fought him, and I was just like instantly like ultra nauseous from those. So like in the match, I'm like burping and like trying to like compose myself, but I was super nauseous during that match. And after the match, I don't know if it's on camera, but after the match, I actually walked off the mat. Everyone thought I was tired, but I walked off the mat and I just laid on the floor and took like a 15-minute nap because I was so nauseous. And then they woke me up, and like, you have to compete again. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like, how many more matches? And I was still nauseous, and they're like, one more. I'm like, who is it? They're like, Jackson Souza. I'm like, oh, I can deal with Jackson Souza. Okay, thank God. and so I went out and I fought Jackson Souza. I strangled him, and then that was the end for that day. And then I had the finals and semifinals and the finals the next day. So I was like, thank God. But that was a really tough match, just because I felt so shitty during that match that I was just trying to like do the minimum amount possible, still get to a submission, but do the minimum amount possible. And Gaudio was way more game than I thought he was going to be, and it ended up being like a way tougher match than I thought it was going to be, and I was trying not to throw up the whole time, and it just turned into a disaster. So now my whole goal for this one is to come in and to prove the point of, everyone says, oh, well, you know, everyone thinks that Gordon just advances, and you guys don't think that everyone else gets better too? Like, what makes you think that Gordon gets better faster than everybody else? And so the point of this is to lay that argument to rest, because I'm going to come in and I'm going to show a completely different version of myself. It's been 5 years since we fought. And so when you see me compete against Gaudio, you're going to see that there's no one in this sport that progresses nearly as fast as me on a technical level. So going in and just doing whatever I want to him for like 15 to 20 minutes and then submitting him however I want, I think is really the point of this. I don't really think that anyone at this point thinks he's going to win, but the question is, how badly is he going to be beaten, and how fast do I progress technically versus other athletes? And I think that's really going to be showcased here.
Do you guys have a relationship? Have you guys kind of gone back and forth at all in the last 5 years since that match?
We talk just in the DMs a little bit. He like responds like a little bit in English. Most of the time I have like Sonny translate to Portuguese because he speaks mostly Portuguese. But just talking about matches and dates, and then figuring out when we can compete, because I know he wants to compete. He thinks that he can beat me, and obviously I want to submit him. So we go back a little bit online and publicly, and a little bit in the DMs as well, just going back and forth and trying to figure out when we're going to compete. And now it's finally come to fruition, so I'm excited for it.
And then also, we've been hearing recently, or last couple of days, you're looking forward to maybe a potential November match as well. You're kind of looking for a November match, is that right?
Yeah, so I was supposed to compete for months against, I think Victor Hugo was like the main guy I was supposed to compete against. And this has happened like 4 times in a row, where like Victor says he's going to compete, says he wants to compete, and then like when the date actually comes, he's like, oh, I can't do it. So I don't know what his reasoning is this time, but all I know is that he can't do it for whatever reason. So Victor's out, and so now I kind of want to just get guys that, either I haven't fought before, like Lovato obviously just can't stay retired, so Lovato would be a great match, I think. Obviously Buchecha's focused on MMA, but Buchecha would be a great match. Hulk I haven't submitted. I fought him twice and I haven't submitted him, and I'm positive I can submit him now. Roosevelt has been calling me out for a rematch because he thinks that I got lucky with that heel hook, which I'm hoping I can just go out and just heel hook him the exact same way in like the exact amount of time. Like I just go out, pull Ashi, and heel hook him again. So Roosevelt would be a good one. And just guys I haven't submitted and guys that I haven't fought before, I think would be my two biggest things, because at this point I've fought pretty much everyone, but there's a couple guys that I haven't yet. And then I think building into these few fights, come back, and then doing a couple matches next year, and then before ADCC, just like we did last year, I want to do like 2 or 3 leading up to ADCC. So I think that fighting Penna when we're both in ADCC camp, both healthy and both getting ready to go into the biggest tournament of the year, I think fighting Penna as a lead up to ADCC just for promotional reasons would be good. So then I'll beat Penna again. We'll be 2-2, and then I'll have to take his lunch money another time. So we're 3-2, and then he can kind of just ride off into retirement or do whatever he's going to do after that. But everyone's like, oh man, you're afraid to fight Penna. Like Penna couldn't even beat Craig. Like he tapped the pressure, he just couldn't beat Craig. Like he lost to the Rotolos, he lost to a random brown belt like in the semifinals. Like Penna's not been doing great. He's 7-3 in his last 10, and I get paid more when I fight Penna versus the other grapplers because of the story. So if Penna wants to fight like every month, we can do that. Like if we fight 100 times, I'm going to be 98-2. So I'm happy to fight Penna as many times as he wants.
And I did think that the Atos rivalry was maybe to bed, but are you surprised to see Hulk in there, campaigning so hard for it?
I think Hulk just at this point wants the paycheck. I think especially after his ADCC run where he just got submitted by Giancarlo, I don't think Hulk is. Obviously he'll come in and he'll be super strong and he'll be big. He'll probably be like 220, 230 pounds like he was when he fought me the first time. I think he cut from like 235 to 217 to make 99 kilos, but he'll be big. But he's training out of Oregon now. He's not training consistently with the Atos guys, and that Andre's retired. Like when like the top guy, like when like a guy like Andre retires, it kind of changes the dichotomy, like the layout and the motivation across the team. And so I think that Kainen's never going to be the same after what Meregali just did to him. Hinger, who knows what he's doing. Like Gustavo Batista, haven't really heard from him. Hulk, you haven't really heard from him. And so the top guys at Atos, that used to kill it, really aren't doing nearly as well since Andre kind of took a step back from competition. And so this may be coincidence, but it may also just have to do with just a different kind of feeling in the room. Like when Andre is there getting ready for competition with you, I think it makes a big difference. Like when I'm here on the mat and I'm the most senior student and I'm getting ready with these guys, like I'm doing camps with them, I think it just brings a different kind of motivation across the board through the room. And I think without that, with Andre, maybe things are a little bit different. It could be wrong, I'm just speculating, but you haven't really seen the performances since ADCC that you've seen in the previous years from the Atos guys. So. And after what Nicholas did to Kainen, I think that kind of ruined Kainen's life, because Kainen was like 100% sure that he was going to smoke Meregali no-gi, and Meregali just 100% exhausted him and like literally just made him like give up. Like he just quit in the match. Like he gets mounted and his legs just go flat. There was no late defense, no early defense, and no late defense whatsoever to the Karagatame, and he just completely quit. Then he pulled out of the GP. So he like thought he was going to smoke Meregali and then like call me out, and he knows that now he knows like he's never going to be relatively close to beating me, which I knew the whole time. But I think that really kind of changed his life. I don't think he's going to be the same competitor after that.
And you mentioned Nicholas Meregali's name. He's a guy who's been having an incredible year, incredible month. What did you think of what he's been doing recently? Of course, the Kynan match, but then just this past weekend going out there and fighting Victor Hugo, winning.
Yeah. So Nicholas is a very interesting case because when he first came here, like he'd never even trained no-gi, and on top of that, he definitely never did any positional rounds. So like having guys start and mount or start on his back was like a completely foreign thing to him, gi or no-gi. And so he was having a real tough time with the positional rounds. He was having a tough time with making grips no-gi and the lack of friction. And I was talking at a seminar the other day. Like every time, like even like until after ADCC, like every session we would do, you would look over at Nicholas after, and you were like, today's the day. Like he's definitely gonna go home and kill himself today. Like it has to be the day today. And so now we're training in the gi every session, and I'm like trying to like finesse my way through the grips and like not just like play my A game and like use mostly no-gi grips. I'm trying to like really learn the grips. And so every day I'm like just getting like tomanaged over my head or like knocked down because like my sleeve's caught. And like he looks over at me, and I know that he looks at me, and he's like, "Today's the day. He's gonna kill himself today." So we kind of have the same thing going on, gi versus no gi. But now that he's getting much better at it, his standing position's much better. He's much better just all around in the ground, gi and no gi. He's a lot more sticky, and he's just better at jiu-jitsu now. And now, so he kind of enjoys no-gi, and now that he has the confidence that he knows he can beat this second, who most people believe is the second best guy in the world. Now he's kind of riding that high, and he has the confidence that he's been looking for this whole time. So I think this is just the beginning for him, gi and no-gi. Obviously, in the gi is a different animal, but even no-gi, I think he's capable of beating anybody in the world across any rule set. And in the gi, he's just getting better and better. And he just literally did like a 2-week camp for the gi. He just went from the Kynan camp, which was the serious one, and he just threw on the gi for 2 weeks, and then went in and beat the best guy who double golded at the last Worlds. So there's not really much else to say besides there's just nobody else in the world really that's gonna beat him, gi or no gi.
And I feel like recently he's becoming a little bit more of a polarizing figure in jiu-jitsu, just how everybody is, right? Some people love him, some people hate him. And, I know you've gone through a little bit of that. Do you guys talk about that at all? How to kind of like deal with that side or anything?
Yeah, we do occasionally, but I think that he kind of just does his own thing. And, obviously I take some stuff from him, he takes some stuff from me, and we both just kind of laugh at each other and just, like every time I open Instagram, it's just Meregali ranting now, and I just see the world imploding as it happens. So it's really fun for me to just watch, like, because with me and like not all of the Brazilians, but just like in general, the Brazilians tend to favor Brazilian athletes. So the Brazilians who don't like me, they see me at least as just an enemy. Whereas Nicholas, because he's Brazilian, they see him as a traitor, which is worse. So like the hatred that they have for Nicholas is actually worse than the hatred that they have for me. So it's just funny to see how easily he gets under their skin. And now, because he's just so good, like he used to be a great champion, but he would win most and he would lose some. Where now he's kind of hit his stride, and ever since ADCC, he's just beating everybody. And so I think that he's gonna upset a lot more people as we go. Like he pretty much has the potential to go as far as he wants. And if he chooses to keep competing gi and no gi, I mean, I don't think that there's anyone who's going to be able to touch him within the next 3 years.
And I had just a hypothetical to ask you too. We're a long way away from ADCC still, of course, but what if Nicholas goes out there and wins the absolute division at ADCC? So
I'm planning this. I've been waiting for one of my teammates to win the absolute for like the last 2 ADCCs or whatever it is. But I really believe that if I had to pick one athlete, Nicholas is the one. Like he's got all the qualities that he needs to win the absolute, and he was so close last year on his first try, and he's so much better than he was the last ADCC. And now we're gonna have 2 more. Like he was training for 6 months. Now he's gonna be training for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, going into the next ADCC. So it's gonna be a completely different Nicholas. So what I'm hoping is that he wins the absolute, and then he just does a super fight. They pick someone for the super fight. I drop back down. I double gold in the division and the absolute. Maybe 2 divisions. I'm seeing what they're going to let me do, if I can do plus and minus 99 plus the absolute. So we'll see. But hopefully he wins the absolute. They just pick him a super fight that makes sense and can bring in money. And then I just double gold again. And then when he wins a super fight the next year, then he just drops back down and we just kind of switch every year from absolute to the super fight, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, and also, ADC season is upon us here. Poland European trials are coming up here next weekend. You got a couple teammates coming out to it. How does it feel to kind of be getting back into ADCC season and seeing some of your teammates go out there and try to punch their ticket?
Yeah, that should be fun. We have Taza, obviously, who's won the trials multiple times now. So I see Taza winning pretty easily. We have Luke, who won the trials last time. And Luke is a guy who, if Luke can just show up and compete like he trains, he should just beat everybody. Dan is the same way. Like, Dan should be able to beat literally anybody in the world. He's like 4 times stronger than everybody else, and he's so technical and he's flexible that there's just no way that anyone, like even at ADCC, should be able to beat him. So Dan should also win pretty easy. Luke should win minus 99 pretty easy. Davis is getting so tough, but he's another guy who's been kind of really good in the gym, but kind of still has to translate it onto the competition stage. Like, he'll either be super hot and he'll just smoke everyone, or if he if it has an off day, then he could lose some matches. So I'm excited to see him go out and compete under the pressure of being, at the Olympic trials, the ADCC trials, and going out and, really coming into his own and competing like he trains. So, and that's all the guys, right? You have Dan, Luke, Davis, Taza. So I think, those 4 guys going out is a real good team. They can coach each other. They're there. They have the camaraderie between them, and I think it's good. I think 4 guys are going to go out there, and we're going to come home with 4 gold medals. So,
and you've done this a bunch of times now. How does it feel to kind of be coming into the ADCC season one more time?
The ADCC camps, actually, believe it or not, get easier as we go because I know what to expect. Like, the first ADCC camp, John's like, we're going to do a 12-week camp, whereas we usually would do 2-week camps for like EBIs and stuff. And we did a 12-week camp, and I was like, oh my fucking God, this is like way more than I expected it to be. And I wasn't really good at wrestling and standing position at that time. It's like every day we were wrestling. I was just gaining weight because I wanted to get out of Gary's division, so I was doing 88 kilos. So I gained like 20 pounds. My lower back was on fire. I couldn't wrestle. Everyone's pulling on my head. It was like the most miserable camp ever. And then I had to do the big weight cut at the end. It was just terrible. Then the 2019 camp, I was coming back off the knee surgery. And so like up until 4 weeks out, I didn't even think I was going to be able to compete at all. And so that was a miserable camp, but it was like I knew what to expect at least, like kind of just going into it. And then 2022 camp was the best camp by far. Like, I did an unofficial 16-week camp. We did an official with the team 12-week camp. And I just like to do a little bit more now. So I do 16-week camps because I just feel like I want different results as everybody else, so I just do a longer camp. Most teams do 12 weeks, do 8 to 12 weeks, so I do 16. So I start pushing, so that way when we get to the official 12-week camp, I build those 4 weeks into the second we start the camp at 12 weeks, I'm already in a hard camp. I don't start at 12 weeks and then build into like a hard camp at 8 weeks. I build in 16 weeks and then 12 weeks hard all the way through. And so the last camp was really good. I had some terrible acid reflux for the entire camp, so I couldn't do morning sessions because I would wake up after sleeping all night and then I would have acid, so I'd have to wake up for the morning session at that time and then kind of calm my stomach down and then go to the afternoon session. So I wasn't able to do the morning session almost the whole camp, which I'm hoping I won't have that issue for this upcoming one, but even with that, it was still the best camp that we've had so far for ADCC. So I didn't have any injuries in 2017, but it was so new and everything was so different, and I wasn't skilled in the standing position. That was just a terrible camp. So health-wise, that was okay for that, but it was just not a great camp for me. So I'm hoping 2024 is going to be the best camp that we've had so far. So we'll see. I'm either trying to petition for a Saturday super fight as well as a Sunday super fight, or maybe seeing if they'll let me do the super fight and then plus and minus 99. So we'll see. I want to do plus and minus, but the problem is I want to give the other guys a chance to win. I want to give like Meregali and Dan. Like, I don't want to have to fight those guys in the division because hands down, like the worst part like the moment of my career was when I had to fight Gary in the absolute. I was like, because he was my coach forever, and like then I ended up submitting him. I just wanted to cry after that. Like I don't like fighting teammates because it's just like I fight these guys every day, and like I know how hard they work, and so it's like a big deal to me. Like I don't like to do it. So I want those guys to go out. Like I want Meregali to double gold. Like I want Dan to double. Like I want these guys to win the divisions. So I would prefer to do a Saturday super fight than just have them counted as an official medal. Like get like a Buchecha rematch, for example. So that way we have like Buchecha Saturday. We compete for an official ADCC medal, like a legend super fight or a goat versus goat, whatever you want to call it, and then do Sunday against Yuri as the official ADCC super fight. So.
That'd be incredible. That'd be awesome. Trey, anything you wanted to ask Gordon here?
I'm just curious, like, obviously you've accomplished pretty much everything at this point, the no-gi go, all that, but what's your, like, main career goal at this point? Like, do you have, like, the number one thing you're after that you have your eyes on?
Well, in terms of a technical standpoint, I'm like just getting started. There's so much more technically to unlock. It's just a matter of me staying healthy. So if I can just stay healthy, I can compete until the ages of 35 and 40. I'd be happy. And if I can compete every year, if I can double gold at ADCC every year until I'm 40, like 39 or 40, I'll have more ADCC medals than Buchecha has world titles. And so if I can do that, which theoretically shouldn't really be possible because it's only every 2 years, so he can get twice as many in half the amount of time. But if I can do that, if I can have 15 medals, because everyone he really has 14. Like he gave the one to Leandro, so he officially has 13, but he really has 14. So if I double gold until I'm 40, I'll have 15 ADCC golds, and so I think that would kind of just be completely untouched, like forever. So if I can do that, I'll be happy with that. But right now I'm kind of just having fun with it. Like I want to just compete against the guys I haven't competed against or haven't submitted. It's kind of weird because like we need to keep making matches, but we're in this generational gap where like, you know, even my generation, like Kainan, is like kind of getting phased out now. And then like Cyborg's generation, like the generation before me, is like all kind of retiring. Like Shanji's not competing, Cyborg's like kind of on his way out. And then the newer guys like aren't good enough or aren't big enough to actually compete against me. Like there's no up and coming heavyweight who's like a 21-year-old like, you know, killer who's just like submitting everybody left and right. So we're kind of in this like weird generational gap where I have to either fight smaller guys or I have to just find like random heavyweights or older heavyweights who I've already competed against. So it's actually great for me because I just keep getting paid to compete, but there's no real competition, so it's awesome. But you know, up until up until 2028, we're not going to see any up and coming guys that are really big enough or good enough to compete against me. So it's fine for me. I'll just keep getting me matches. I'll keep winning them and keep getting better.
We're here for it, man. 10 more years, Gordon at ADCC. We're here for it.
Hopefully. If I can just stay healthy, everything will be okay. Because I'm better than ever. Like even like when I peaked for that Penna camp, the Penna camp was the best camp I ever had. I was so much better and so much physically stronger for that Penna camp than I was at ADCC. Like when I went into fight Penna, the one that I had to pull out, if I would have fought myself the day before I got sick, if that Gordon would have fought the Gordon at ADCC, he would have just crushed him. Which is like crazy to think about, and most people won't believe it, but it actually is true. I just had so many more things technically that I was doing. I was actually eating food because my acid reflux, I got it handled. So I was actually eating food. I was a little bit heavier. I was so much stronger, and so that's kind of where I want to get back to now in terms of just my physicality and obviously technically I'm better than that, but just the whole package. So building into this Gaudio camp and then doing a November show and then maybe a December event and then kind of building into next year where we can go hard into ADCC, like 2 or 3 matches before ADCC and then just ramp it up and then boom, do like a hard peak for ADCC, I think is going to be a different Gordon if I can stay healthy, which is always the biggest thing. Like if I can just do that, then I'll be okay.
Awesome. Thanks for the time, Gordon. Anything else you wanted to say or talk about while we're here?
Nope. Just thanks to the haters for always paying my bills. Love you guys and best fans in the world. So October 1st, gonna be a lot of tears out there.